Yeah, so like I was saying, within a season of me dating and putting myself back out there, I, pretty much was getting to the place where God had to show me and sit me down. And this was during my spiritual awakening, letting me know that I had abandonment issues, letting me know that the relationship that I had with my dad, in regards to him, he was, in and out of my life, but for the most part, when I was younger, he was there more so that he was more present when I was younger. And then as I got older, he kind of got less and less in my life with certain things. We stayed in connection, and then ultimately me relocating from New Jersey and going to North Carolina also added to that as well. But prior to that, we had, like I said, I've always had been a daddy's girl prior to that, but God had to just show me that my abandonment issues caused me to be overly accommodating to men. And then he had to, really just sit me down and let me know about my self-image, my self-worth, my self-value, So he started to build my spirit man up. So, the connections that I was making and stuff like that, it left me unfulfilled, because at the end of the day, who wants to be played with, and who wants to be made to feel like, you're number 5 on somebody's list, and you're number 9 on somebody's list, or you the Sunday girl or the Tuesday girl or the Wednesday girl, nobody wants to. I know I didn't. That got old real quick for me. And one thing about it, I'm like, I don't like to play games. You know what I'm saying? I've always been a straight shooter, and I can accept some things if you're real with me, but don't play games with me and act like, you don't know what you're doing, So it just got to a place where, like I said, during my spiritual awakening, God has stripped me from all of that. I had got to a space too that I have started smoking marijuana again, and this is back over 20 years that I had not even had smoked and stuff like that. I've never been a major drinker, but I was, starting to drink as well socially and stuff like that too. So that increased as well. So like I said, those habits, those things can lay dormant for years, you know what I'm saying? So like I said, I started to see myself change in different ways that I necessarily didn't like. But at the end of the day, I was more like, in a space of like, I'm just doing me right now. I'm tired of just, not being happy, or tired of, following rules and regulations. And, I just got to the place I was just exhausted of just like legalistic things, and then I got exhausted with just being disappointed. But I was hurt. I was hurt. And I needed a space to do that. And pretty much I took it out on myself, and self-sabotage, So it was just so many things that he had to sit me down and let me know. And throughout the time of him healing me and making me whole, he let me know that I have to let these things go. The habits, the people, anything that was not for my greater and higher self, I had to let it go. Employment, I'm saying, all of the warfare and dealing with things that was less than me. Abandonment issues, still being in a relationship with someone that's really not even, he let me know ultimately, why are you continuing to invest yourself into people, give yourself to people, and the reciprocity is not there? And he let me know nobody was exempt from that. So it was a really, really hard lesson for me, because I think sometimes when you become accustomed to certain things, it just becomes habitual for you, And like I said, especially with the being overly accommodating to men, even while I was in that dating season, like I said, I was not fully divorced, you know what I'm saying? So people were really experiencing what a wife was, because that's all I knew, you know what I'm saying? So while you're, in a situationship and this and that, but they were getting a whole wife experience from me, you know what I'm saying? Especially if we connected in that way, you know what I'm saying? Not everybody, you know what I'm saying? But it was just one of those things where he just let me know that my energy is sacred. He talked to me about that, how it was healing, and how just being with me, and not even, and especially if we were intimate, that my spirit and my energy is abundant. Like, just even in sin, that they will still be abundant, whether that means that makes it more, appealing to other women, or getting an influx in jobs or opportunities, like all these different things he let me know. And I'm like, what, Lord? Like, what do you mean, And I'm like, okay, that sounds like I'm tooting my own horn a little bit, but no, he's letting me know my worth and my value. And I didn't understand energy like I thought I did. I did not know the essence of my calling. Like I said, I did not know the oil on my life. I did not know or respect myself like I should. Like I said, I was really coming from a hurt space, really trying to find answers. I was dealing with, traumatic experience from church. I was in a separation, you know what I'm saying? And then my husband had got sick while we were separated. So it was just like all these different responsibilities on me. And then even as a young person, I took on other responsibilities as well. I'm not going to get into that in this video. But I was just so used to, taking the brunt and the responsibility and burden of just having, more than my life and my issues, and I got to a place where I wanted out of that. I wanted to be just me. I wanted to do me and just be me, and I just was in that space, and like I said, it's not it's not making an excuse for sin. It's not dressing it up, but it's letting you know where I was at. Because a lot of times when people are, nobody that's healed, is going to go out here and just, do certain things and allow people to do certain things to them. And sometimes I think even with men too, men and women, like I said, when you can tell when a person loves themselves based upon what they will allow and what they won't allow, and that's the space that I was in. So he really had to clean me up. And before I knew it, he told me to let all of those relationships go. And guys, he's so beautiful and graceful, because one thing about him, he doesn't charge your sin against you. One thing about the world, and sometimes, the church world and the world, sin ain't nothing for God. He been dealing with children of Israel, people from the beginning of the time. Sin ain't nothing new for God. Ain't no sin bigger or better than God. I know talk about blasphemy, that's not forgivable. I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking in general that, the sin and all of these different things, lust and all that ain't nothing new. Even in the book of Solomon, ain't nothing new under the sun. You know what I'm saying? So God is accustomed to that. We are not too big and too messy and too messed up for God to redeem us and clean us. You know what I'm saying? But he began to just show me grace and just heal me and let me know, that I'm loved, that I'm called, and let me know my purpose, bringing me back to the core of who I am, and how he made me to be and not how I was being. But like I said, when you're in lust and when you're in those places, those become stronghold. The best way I said that I can have an analogy of what it's like, or what it was like for me when I went backsliding, when I went into sin, is like, picture yourself, and if you got any little thickness to you, getting in a pool of water. It's cool, it's refreshing, it's new. You get in the water, you're light, you know what I'm saying? You can swim and do this. I'm a swimmer too. I could, swim. So you can go with the water, you can just flow, and it's just like a level of ease, because when I started going back, into the world, it wasn't like all these things were going wrong for me. I still was progressing, I still was making money, I still was, I was just still progressing, So I thought overall, but my spirit man was dying and it was declining. But how many people know when it's time to get out of that water? That's when the weight really hits you. Like, oh my goodness, it was easy for me to get in, but you feel the weight of that thing when you're trying to get out. And that's how it was for me when I was trying to get out and get loose from those things. He'll let me know that there were certain spirits that were on me, definitely a cursing demon that was on me, and lust that was on me, and then also me not really being whole and healed, not walking in my full self-worth, my self-esteem, my self-value, my self-respect, but ultimately my self-identity in God. He wanted me to know that, so he began to work with me and brought me back to his word. And it didn't start off like with me reading every day. Now, I got to be at the feet of God, and even before this, I always had struggled previously, even when I was saved, about like reading the word. I'm more of a studier. I like to study, so I'm not like, I have my spurts, but mainly I like to kind of know, get to the root of certain things. And those things stick with me more. It's almost like, having a full course meal versus like some fast food type thing. Studying to me is just like, it just sticks to the bone, and then it makes me remember certain situations and stuff like that. But he brought me back to, the word of God. He let me, give up smoking marijuana. I never forget, I took that last blunt that I had, and I could have smoked it, but he had pressed upon my heart so much, and he did it with love. Keyword, he did it with love, because it was almost like, by the time he started to restore me, by the time he started to purge me, by the time he started to heal me, and just continue to bring about all the love and levels of love and how I'm called and how I've been chosen and how he loved me despite what I've done and haven't done. By that time, it just felt like I had this overtaking feeling of like, I'm disappointing my father. You know what I'm saying? Like, by me continuing in these certain things, I'm disappointing my father, So it was just one of those things where I felt bad I didn't take joy in it. And that's how you know that you're changing, for some of the things that you used to do, that it no longer gives you that same pleasure. And sometimes you can still try to do the same act because it's a habitual and because it's a stronghold, but because you're changing spiritually, you're no longer enjoying those things, and then you get to see the full spectrum behind, okay, I may be laying with this person, I may be allowing this person around my spirit, but what else are my, when they leave and when the act is over, what else is still being left remain in my life? You know what I'm saying? What else is hindering my purpose? What else is hindering my calling? What else is hindering my spirit? What else is hindering my self-esteem, my self-identity? You know what I'm saying? So those are the things that he began to really, remind me of. And like I said, I knew of God before, but when you go through different things in life, sometimes it's easy to get off kilter. Just because you're off kilter doesn't mean, that you forget God. But sometimes in our flesh, because even the word talks about that we need to walk in the spirit so we don't obey the lust of our flesh. But when we obey the lust of our flesh, it's going to lead us astray. You're not going to be able to do that. You know what I'm saying? You're not going to be able to live in your flesh and live in the spirit. Ain't no way. Ain't no way. It don't make sense. It cancels each other out. You know what I'm saying? If one is either one or the other, So those are some of the things that I just wanted to kind of like pretty much express. He healed me, and he healed me by doing the internal work, and not just the exterior, and not just how we do, not even holistic. It's just a spiritual thing, so it's spiritual and holistic all in one, and again, I had to face a lot of things that I didn't want, and that was really hard for me, really. Facing some of the things that he was showing me and stuff like that with like family and friends. That was a big thing. He was showing me the hearts of family and friends that were around me, and how some people had jealousy, and then some people really didn't mean well for me. And again, like I told you about the abandonment. So those were things I'm like, Lord, I already know I'm literally still grieving, because by that time I had lost my husband and stuff, and I'm like, I'm still grieving, and I'm going through this and I'm going through that, and I was dealing with stuff at the job, and I'm just like, come on, like, God, give me a break. You know what I'm saying? I was just like, I don't want to deal with this, but he had to let me know. And it started bringing things back to me, you know what I'm saying, and letting me know what a friend is and what it's not. And I had to sit in that. I had to sit in my pain. I had to sit in my pain so that he can start to deposit and I can digest my purpose in him, and it was just not easy for me. It was not easy for me. I've always been a person, a lover of people. And I think I had some naiveness to me too, just believing the best in people, and I don't think, being naive is not predicated upon age. I think it's experience, and then also your heart posture. Like I said and often say, I wasn't perfect, but I have a pure heart. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not going to debate if a person can be in sin and still have a pure heart. I'm not going to debate all of that, but I had a conscience. I know I wasn't knocking niggas over the head and, trying to steal people money and be all, and that's one form of it. But I wasn't, like I'm just saying, like outlandish, just trying to be unruly and just don't care what I do to people, don't have a conscience, don't have, any type of remorse for people or humanity, so I wasn't in that space, but I was in a space where I was just very vulnerable. I had got, just pretty much weighed down with so much stuff in life. I just got weighed down with so many things in life, and I just got to a place where I was just like, this is a lot. You know what I'm saying? I didn't really have people that I can kind of like reach out to and stuff like that. And then by that time, I didn't even want to reach out to people, because I felt like, well, if you were in my life, before, and you're not in my life now, I'm gonna let you stay where you at, and I'm gonna just do my thing, But that's how the enemy does too. He isolates you, you know what I'm saying? Unless you be isolated, so that you don't have those people in your ear speaking what thus saith the Lord, what the word of God says and stuff like that, But, like I said, it was just one of those things where he really had to heal me, and he brought me wholeness and healing by reminding me who I am and whose I am in him. And it wasn't an easy process. I cried, purge, wept. But at the end of the day, I was growing stronger. And I got so much understanding of that scripture as it talks about, in our weakness, he's made strong, I had to come to the end of me, of what I was, and had to admit, like, I am overtaken in sorrow. I am overtaken in grief. I haven't even caught up with just grieving. One person, you know what I'm saying? It was grieving, all of the death that took place in my life. And then my husband had passed away. And then my aunt had passed away. Then my mother-in-law passed away, And then, like I said, it was just so much stuff, that I had left the church in 2018. And then my community, my friendships, like everything had changed. And I just did not know how to respond to it, you know what I'm saying? And it hurt me, And I just think I didn't allow myself to feel that hurt. So I did things externally, you know what I'm saying, to really kind of like, dismiss, distract. That's the word I'm looking for. Yes, to distract myself from the pain. But my actions was letting me know that I was in pain. So like I said, he took me and freed me from all of that, situationships and all of that. And, just dealing with foolishness and people playing games and stuff like that. People about to make you, want to hurt them for real, you know what I'm saying? So it was just one of those things. He let me know, like, you're better than this. This what you want? You sure you want this? You sure you want this? Because the game and the world is for you to hopefully, let me just slow it down. Let me slow down because I'm so passionate about it, And like I said, ain't no shame in my game. God has redeemed me. I am not the same, you know what I mean? But the name of the game in the world is to hope that you don't know your worth. People know, even when you in sin, people know when they have came up on, lucked up on, rolled up on somebody that is different. And even though I was in sin, my spirit, and I don't care what nobody say, when you have a call on, when you've been chosen, you are different. Even in sin, you're different. You know what I'm saying? You're made different for real. I know that's a saying, but for real, you're made different. So people that experience me, you know what I'm saying, even though I was in a backsliding state, even though I was not living, I was living my life of totally against the Lord, you know what I'm saying, his will, his ways for me in my life, people will still be able to see that I had a light still in me. And I thank God for that even in my darkness, my God, even in my darkness, he was able to still bring light to my life. You know what I'm saying? And then he take away all of my life. You know what I'm saying? So I just thank God for that. But people know when you are different. People know when you're set aside. Excuse me. The way you talk, the way you walk, your energy, the way they feel around you. They may not always tell you. Like I said, the game is to play along like they don't know. Like they don't know you're special. Like they don't know you're worth more than the way they're treating you. They know. And they have to pay for that too. They have to pay for that. Just like I have to pay for my mistakes, they have to pay for that too. You know what I'm saying? So it's just one of those things. We both get karma. You know what I'm saying? It is not one of those things that you're wishing death upon somebody. No, because it takes two people, to sin and stuff like that. So, and I willingly did things, so I'm not saying that. But when people are manipulative, and I never forget this definition, manipulation is so simplistic, but I found so much meat and value in things that are so profound in God, or sometimes in the simplistic way, in simple form. But to manipulate a person is to see their vulnerability and take advantage of it, meaning that you use it to your good, you use it to your advantage. So when you're manipulating a person, you're able to see their vulnerability, see where, oh yeah, they be going through that, they still hurt, they may not be saying that, but I can see that, and use what you see to your advantage. That's what being manipulated is, and it is really a form of witchcraft, you know what I'm saying? So it's just a lot that I can go in depth with. God has opened my eyes to so many things that I didn't even can comprehend, you know what I'm saying? But to God be the glory.